So, today we're going to be talking about Noah's flood. Noah's flood. You ready to talk about Noah's flood?
Yeah.
Okay. First question. Should the church challenge worldly science? What do you think? Should the church...
Yes.
Should the church...
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah? Why? Or...
Because God is true. I mean,
Yeah,
the Bible,
sure.
The Bible said it was truth.
Right.
Theory of the science always changing day
Yeah.
by day.
Yeah, so scientific revolution happens right after the Reformation. It's all right online with the Bible, and then it starts separating, and now the definition of science is science is completely changed, where it's science versus religion, and so, I think you should. I think you should challenge worldly science.
Because the science always correct what's not correct before.
But
Yeah.
science also discovered that the Bible was true.
I agree.
Yeah, if it's good science.
The science, they were able to find out all Bible biblical documents, translate all
Yep.
archaic language, all Hebrew language, all the Greek testaments, the Greek translations. So.
Yep. Yeah, I think, and there's a lot of sciences. There's science of astronomy, cosmology, and there's biological science and all these things. And I do think that they should point to God, but most people in the world, or a lot of people in the world, are not Christians, and so they don't submit to the authority of Scripture. So it's nothing new. Obviously, when the New Testament was being written, you had Greek philosophy that dominated the day, and the church had to deal with Gnosticism, and now we're dealing with secular science. All right, so we're going to go to, you don't have to go here. I'm going to go to Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11, verses 4 through 7. Okay, Hebrews chapter 11. What's Hebrews chapter 11 about? I know Joyce knows. It's about what? Faith. So they define faith, and then verse 4, by faith Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him by accepting his gifts, and through his faith, though he died, he still speaks. By faith Enoch was taken up so that he should not see death, and he was not found because God had taken him. Now, before he was taken, he was commended as having pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. By faith, Noah, being warned by God concerning events as yet unseen, in reverent fear, constructed an ark for the saving of his household. By this, he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. Okay, so how was Abel saved? Through faith. How was Enoch saved? Faith. How was Noah saved? Faith. So is faith a New Testament thing and works an Old Testament thing? No. No, because, and you see Hebrews, it makes it very clear that that works has always been, faith has always been how to become righteous. So Abel has a faith. He offers a more acceptable sacrifice. And then Noah builds an ark, builds a huge ark. Takes him over 100 years to build this huge ark. And that's a lot of faith. He has faith in God. Okay, it's always been by faith. Even Adam and Eve turning back to God, it's always been by faith. And so, anyway, all right, let's go through. Okay, verses 1 and 2. When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Okay? So, who are the sons of God? Who are the daughters of man? Who are the sons of God? Who are the daughters of man?
Angel.
All right.
Or fallen. I don't know.
All right. So sons of God are either angels or godly men, right? They're either angels or godly men, most in the line of Seth. Daughters of men are either regular women, not angels, or worldly women, most in the line of Cain. Okay, and so we do know this is right before God is going to drown the world with water. So we know that this is evidence of how corrupt the world is becoming before God's going to drown the world. So either angels are marrying regular women in the world, or godly men are marrying ungodly women. So what does everyone think is going on? And there's also another view that these are sons of God are mythological heroes. There's a third view that they're mythological heroes. But so just like the gods of Greek mythology.
Oh. Okay, that's weird. Yeah, I wouldn't take the third view. That's kind of weird.
A lot of people take both views. It's a very.
Yeah.
I would say. Does anybody want to make?
How about yours?
All right. I think the sons of God refer to angels. Okay. I think it refer to angels, and for a lot of people that's shocking. Okay. Fallen angels.
Hello.
Hey.
Come on in.
Hello.
Come.
Hey.
Want some
Hello.
tea?
Come on, sit down.
Okay, thank you.
This is right here.
Want to have some tea? Green tea.
I speak This is my first time.
Okay, it's okay. Hello. Why don't you? What's your name?
Daniel.
Are you from
From Taiwan.
Taiwan?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Friend of,
He's
You are-
the friend of
Lucy.
Lucy.
so it's good to see you, Daniel. Sorry we left early. We went to go eat lunch,
Oh.
and then
You have to go
we had to
to
go.
the-
We had to go.
Hi.
Hi, Sonny.
Okay, well.
So, Sonny, are the sons of God angels, or are they?
No, they are not angels. No.
You don't think they're angels?
No.
Tell us why. Tell us
Don't
why.
give me the fallen angels routine.
Come on. Tell us your view. Tell us your view.
Descendants of Cain. The line of Cain.
Okay.
The line of Cain.
Come on, sit
The
down.
line of Seth, right?
We can have two different views, right?
Yeah, we have two different views.
I haven't had a chance to review anything about that. That's not.
I have had a lot of chance to review. I'm gonna win the argument right now, even if you're right.
No, I had to argue that over with a lady who does YouTube because she insists on the fallen angels too.
All right. Well, I'm gonna make my case for the fallen angels. Okay.
Go ahead. I'll hear your case.
Job chapter.
Yeah, I don't care. Either way is fine with me.
And Sonny, we have a.
It could be godly man marrying ungodly woman.
That's what a lot of Presbyterians I've heard believe that too.
I don't mind either way.
And Sonny, we have a new person today. We have Daniel.
Daniel. Oh, excellent. We need a Daniel. Definitely. So where am I sitting?
I'm gonna make my case. I was listening to a sermon one time, and someone said the sons of God were fallen angels, and I started off thinking there's no way at the end of the sermon I'm going to believe that, and at the end of the sermon I believed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who is the speaker?
Well, it's John MacArthur.
Oh, John MacArthur.
Yeah, John MacArthur.
Okay, but okay.
I'm going to listen to this guy.
But okay, why? Why do you think it's angel?
I keep hearing
I
about
let
being-
let me.
We always have we have two explanations about this.
Yeah, there's two. A lot of people believe it's Cain's line and Seth's
Yes.
line
Yes.
intermarrying.
How many people agree with that?
Oh my God! Let's don't play for a vote. Politics are over. Politics are over.
Cain's line.
Sons of God, angels are
We're talking about the sons of God.
Seth's line. Complicated. Oh, he's taking the easy. Make a stand.
Make your stand.
Come on, David. I made a stand. You can make a stand.
No. Sunny made a very strong stand, and then she's not prepared. And now I'm prepared.
The traditional stance is that they were falling.
Yeah.
He's one of the angels.
He's on the sanctified side.
What do we need to vote right now?
We just
You already voted.
but we can still make a vote about this.
You have to go back to your hometown in order to vote.
And don't go by donkey.
So I think the sons of God refer to angels. Okay, Job chapter.
Okay, go ahead. I've heard it before. Go ahead.
Job chapter 1, verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. Okay? Sons of God here are referring to angels, just like Satan is an angel, a fallen angel. Job chapter 2, verse 1. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord. Again, sons of God are referring to angels. Job 38, verse 7. When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. These sons of God are the angels that are shouting for joy of the creation of the world. Okay. These.
Do you have it on PowerPoint? As you read?
No, you can I can give you the verses again if you want. Job 1:6, Job 2:1, Job 38:7. It's the one right there. 6:2.
Chapter 6, verse 2.
Yeah. All right. These are all examples when the sons of God refer to angels. Psalm 89:6. For who in the skies can be compared to the Lord? Who among the heavenly beings is like the Lord? Heavenly beings in Hebrew could also be translated as sons of God or sons of might. Daniel chapter 3, verse 25. He answered and said, But I see 4 men unbound walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the 4th is like the son of the gods. Okay, son of the gods. So these are, and there's also some references to in the New Testament as well.
I thought that one refers to Jesus.
It probably does refer to Jesus, but he's kind of like an angelic appearance. I know that he's God. Of course, he's God with a capital G, but he's got a heavenly thing. Let's just take the Daniel verse out. You still have Job, and then Job. Rabbinic tradition suggests that Moses is the author of Job, and if that's true, then you've got the same author using Son of God in all places. Okay, New Testament, 1 Peter 3:18 through 20. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit, in which he went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison, because they formerly did not obey, when God's patience waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 persons, who were brought safely through water. Okay, these specific spirits in the days of Noah were put into a spiritual prison. All right, so they must have done something really terrible in order to be put into a special prison, because we know the demons, because these angels are demons, right? They're not the godly angels. They're the 1/3 of the angels that became demons.
I have a question. Do you believe it's a fallen angels and human being? You need to solve a question like demon, marry, human being. It's kind of weird.
Can I finish? Let me finish all the spiritual references first. 2 Peter 2:4. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and condemned them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment. Okay, this is again referencing these specific angels. God did not spare them, but committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment. Okay, so the chains of gloomy darkness is not the judgment. It is a special prison just to be kept there until the final judgment. Jude verse 6 and 7. And the angels who did not stay within their own positions of authority, but left their proper dwelling he has kept in eternal change under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day, just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities, which likewise indulged in sexual immorality and pursued unnatural desires, serve as an example by undergoing a punishment of eternal fire. Here, the perversion of the angels at the time of Noah is compared with the sexual perversion of Sodom and Gomorrah, which was rampant with aggressive homosexuality. So the perversion of angels marrying women is compared with the homosexuality of Sodom and Gomorrah. Luke chapter 8, verse 28. When he, Legion, remember Legion? The one filled with demons? He was filled with demons. How many soldiers were in a legion? How many soldiers were in a legion? 4,000 to 6,000. So that is a serious possession. If your name is Legion, we are Legion because of all the demons. So it could have been only 1,000 people in there, but there's a lot of demons in this guy. Luke chapter 8, verse 28. And I can send out these notes later if you would like. When Legion saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him and said with a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High? I beg you, do not torment me." How do these demons, a lot of demons, very scary person, how do they feel towards Jesus?
Afraid.
Terrified, mortified, horrified, right? And why are they mortified? Luke chapter 8, verse 31, and they begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. And so, they went into the pigs, right? Begging Jesus, don't send us to the abyss. And the abyss is the same place, I think, that the sons of God who married women went, this special place. And they are so terrified of going there, okay? Okay.
What are your evidence for this? Like,
I just gave you all the evidence.
yeah, but I'm talking about like physical evidence. So, what did their children look like?
We're gonna get to that. That's verses 3 and 4.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I think it seems clear if it's a marriage between demonic angels and human women. But I think a lot of people have an opposing view that it's Seth's line and Cain's line, and that's fine. That's fine. It's fine. You can live in the realm of being wrong, and that's fine.
Well, Thomas, I think you have to consider their spirits, right?
Yeah.
How are they going to consummate anything?
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that.
Okay.
It doesn't change whether or not Jesus died on the cross, so we don't have to
Yeah, of course.
necessarily die on the hill over it.
Well, I care. My primary thing is the gospel, and that the sons of God are angels. Those are my two primary. All right. Those are the don't mess.
Only he can make a connection like that.
And so, has anyone seen the romantic movie City of Angels with Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan?
Yes.
You saw that movie?
Yes.
I didn't know you. Well, anyway,
We were together.
it must have been a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Very romantic.
But God doesn't really see this relationship as beautiful. He sees it as extremely perverse, like homosexuality. Okay, don't watch the film Noah either.
Oh yeah, it was a disappointment.
Starring Christian Bale.
I think it was Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe. That's right. He was doing all those boat movies. He did Master and Commander.
Yeah, I brought my son to that, and he said, "That's in the Bible. That's in the Bible." All through the whole movie, he was like, "No, this is really a movie."
Weird edition.
Oh, we were gonna give the gospel to his friend. Oh, it was all wrong.
All right.
Oh well.
So in verse 4 we read that they bore children. Okay, so I'm not sure how this happened, but perhaps the angels possessed men in order to marry women and have children. So they don't really give a lot of specific details of how this all works. I don't really know how biologically this worked. So
Like I said, they're spirits. So how are they going to do this?
I don't know. They give us 4 verses. They give us 4 verses. So
Okay.
it could be that they possessed men and used and then kind of like controlled them, kind of like Judas was controlled, and so it could have been like that. I don't, but they don't give any details. So we're going deep in between the lines here, and
Yeah.
so.
That's why
I know I need something.
Okay, so Joyce, you want to read verse 3 and 4?
Okay. Verse 3, the Lord said, my spirit should not abide in man forever, for the flesh he says should be 120 years. The Nephilim were on earth in low state, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they born children to them, they were the mighty men who will all aboard the man of renew.
Okay, so in Hebrew, it could also say, my spirit shall not contend with men forever. And it sounds a little bit like Paul in Romans writing how he will give people over to perversion, okay? Because man wants to sin, right? Man wants to sin and wants to make excuses why it's able to sin, and God wants man to be righteous. And so God tries to contend with sinful man to help them to be fruitful, but man's indulgence in sin pushes God away and separates man more and more from God. And at some point, a righteous God will bring judgment. Okay. I don't know why it mentions man as flesh here, but it does also remind me of Paul in Romans distinguishing between the flesh and the spirit. Okay. And so apparently man has 120 years before some kind of a judgment, but we're not told exactly what the judgment is at this point. Of course, we all know, but anyway. Nephilim means giants. Okay.
Yes.
Giants. Okay. We're and so many of you have a hard time believing in giant people. Definitely, there were giant people roaming around the earth. However, most of us will believe in giant dinosaurs, but giant people are hard for us to believe because they don't exist anymore as much. You have freakishly tall people every once in a while, but a lot of times they're tall, but then they're very skinny and they've got defects. Also, many people assume that the Nephilim were the sons of the marriages between angels and women. So the fallen angels married women, produced offspring, and they were the Nephilim. And that's not necessarily true either. Because but here it shows that the Nephilim were after those days too. The Nephilim were after the days of Noah. So after Noah's Ark, there were giants still. Okay, so... and I think the spirits stopped preying on women when they started being put into prisons. For those of you who accept this view, I think because in 1 Peter it specifically says during the days of Noah. So I think they stopped, but the Nephilim continued. So I think the Nephilim were just giants, and God is just using. Okay, there were fallen angels marrying women, and there were Nephilim going around in a violent time, and they were beating people, and they were harming people, and God is just showing how bad things are getting before He wipes out the earth. Okay. Okay. All right. Who has ever heard of the Book of Enoch? The Book of Enoch. We talked about Enoch last week. He walked with God, right? I don't think Enoch had anything to do with the writing of the Book of Enoch or the Scroll of Enoch. It was probably written 1, 2, 3 centuries before Jesus. It taught that demons married women, human women, and they produced Nephilim offspring, which is what I said. I don't think that actually happened. But it taught that the women and the angels and the women married, and they had Nephilim giant offspring, and these offspring were extremely wicked because they were demonic offspring, and so that they promoted that the sinfulness in the world was a result of a genealogical connection with the Nephilim, not because of our original sin. Okay, so you have to be careful with that, and this might be why Paul in First Timothy writes against endless debates over genealogies. That's 1 Timothy 1:4. And remember that Timothy was reaching the Jews. So this book probably had a big effect with Jewish people during the time of the New Testament. Okay, and that might help you when next time you read 1 Timothy. All right, the Nephilim existed after the days of Noah. Okay, how tall was Goliath? How tall was Goliath?
He's a giant, I don't know.
About
Very, very tall.
Very big.
about 3 meters. About 3 meters tall. That's a Nephilim as far as I'm concerned. 3 meters tall. That's pretty tall. And you're like muscular too. Not like one of those 3 meter tall people who are really skinny and weak, but like muscles and everything. That's horrifying, right? So I do think these are separate circumstances. The giants that were famous during the time of Genesis being written were the Nephilim that were born, that were before the flood as well. Okay. Does science outside of the church, do they believe in a global flood? Yes or no?
I think it depends.
Yeah, most of them I think believe in a global flood. And they won't say it happened, 4,000 years ago, but they do believe in. Some will say no. It's hard to read historical science because they have so many different opinions about everything. So I read an article suggesting the Earth was originally covered completely by water with no mountains. I've heard that it was covered by water as it went through cooling and warming periods. I read there are people believe that it was completely covered by water when an asteroid hit the Earth that supposedly wiped out the dinosaurs. The problem with historical science, when you go backwards, thousands, millions, billions of years, the problem with that is it's not repeatable. It's not like something you test all the time. When you go backwards, if you try to figure out what was happening 5,000 years ago, you can't repeat that. And to me, if you can't repeat it 100 times, it's not science. Yeah. It's not science in the way that in the way that's not science in the way that's changed the world for the better. That's just you have so many assumptions because you put something into the scientific method and then the outcome might be different than you expected, and then you have to explain that. You don't have that with historical science. It's just theory, So, does history support a global flood? Does history support a global flood?
I think so. Because there are multiple cultures that.
There's many myths and legends about it. Many myths and legends.
That's also the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I think all right. Has everyone heard of the Epic of Gilgamesh?
Yeah.
This does contain a flood story. There are actually a bunch of examples of this, as you would expect if the entire Earth was covered with water.
Yeah.
Is it a stone? The crab?
Okay, it's a long epic story, but it does contain a flood story, but there are yes.
Epic story from where? Who wrote it?
And who find this?
So it was an ancient Sumerian. It was a Sumerian, right? I think it was an ancient Sumerian story that was written about this guy that did a bunch of really legendary stuff. It was like the original tablets were written in this clay in a language called cuneiform, and that's how it was originally distributed. And it was kind of one of the really early examples of the foundations of the Western epic or the Western style of storytelling. And I think it was even before the Odyssey, by Homer, the Odysseus and all that. I think it was even before that. But it contains a lot of stuff there's a flood thing, you fight some giants, I think, and stuff like that. So it's just a really classic story that kind of was one of the building blocks of Western storytelling.
All right. Thanks, David. All right. We also have sacrifices all over the world.
Who's this?
Oh, that's mine. Thank you so much.
Gosh, that's a big red bag. How much money's in that?
新年快乐！万事如意。
$20.
Aye. So if you've ever studied world religions, you'll probably find that many of them have sacrifices. The idea of sacrifices. However, many of them sound more like Cain murdering his brother than Abel's sacrifice, but they do have that reference. And just like Abel's sacrifice and the sacrifice that saved Adam and Eve, and Noah's sacrifice after he comes out of the ark, a lot of religions around the world do have that. Okay. After the European Reformation, there was a scientific revolution that accepted science at the beginning. Science, as we know it, accepted that the Earth was 6,000 years old, and that God created everything in a biblical way. Okay, what was the first area of science that challenged biblical creation? What was the first area of science that challenged biblical creation? Was it biology? Was it history?
Carbon dating? Would it be?
No, not.
Before that, it would be natural selection. Right?
It was before natural selection. I mean, you had it was before biology. It was actually geology. Geology was the first. Geology. After the Reformation, geologists believed in catastrophism. So this is a Christian influence. Catastrophism, or cataclysmic geology. Basically, the Earth was radically changed during the flood, which is why there are fish fossils on Mount Everest. Geologists began to challenge this idea of a 6,000-year-old biblical creation, like James Hutton. James Hutton was a person who studied rocks in Scotland, and he was looking for evidence of that many of the rocks formed took a lot longer than thousands of years to form. The big guy is Charles Lyell. Dun dun dun. So Charles Lyell promoted the idea of what? Uniformitarianism. Uniformitarianism. It is not like Unitarianism. They're both bad. Uniformitarianism. Not catastrophism. Okay. Uniformitarianism is explaining the past using the present. Okay. So whatever the present is doing, whatever things are happening now, if you just assume it's been happening like that for forever, then that's how you can calculate that way. You can go use what's happening to now to paint a story of what happened in the past. Okay, and then you can challenge the biblical understanding. I don't know. It was before. I think he was around the same generation as Darwin.
Judging from the sideburns, I would say late 1700s, 1800s. Judging by those sideburns.
Yeah.
I think he was the same generation as Charles Darwin actually had a copy of Lyell's book on his journey to the Galapagos Islands before he produced The Origin of the Species. So he had a huge effect on Charles Darwin. And this is you're separating the science from the Bible, and now science is so far separated from God, it's just ridiculous, and it's so obviously over the top ridiculous. And many of these scientists' views, like Hutton and Charles Lyell, their views that they believed have been discredited, but the principles they use, like uniformitarianism, they're still used in modern science today. They just change the variables, right? Okay.
Is there any evidence of how it started? I mean,
of how what started?
uniformity. His idea of this uniformity.
They want to be able to challenge the Bible, and so they want to say because a lot of them during the Enlightenment, there was a desire to accept Greek philosophy. In Greek philosophy, the Earth was very old. Remember, Augustine had to accept age, the creation theory, and so the world is very, very old. And so there's always been a push for a very old Earth, a very old universe, and I think Hutton believed it was eternal. And I think the scientists originally thought that the world was eternal, like it's just always been there. That was a static universe that never changed. And of course, their models always change. They stick to a model. Like right now, we have the Big Bang Theory. They stick to a model, and then they try to maintain it until it's overthrown by another model. You have. I think there's a lot of influences. It's similar with Charles Darwin. I think a lot of it was political because with England, England was not affected by the French Revolution like Germany was and France was, obviously. And so the radicals know that they can demolish religion in England, and then the radicals could do to England what they did to France and to Germany. And I think a lot of it was political to demolish that. And I mean, I'm not saying they didn't actually believe it, but a lot of it is political. 'Cause remember, when you're dealing with religion in Europe, politics and religion are often linked together. So, if your state is your religion, then if your state controls your religion, then politics and religion are combined. Not like in America where you have a big separation between church and state, which is there's some good things and some bad things with that. Anyway, this is Mount St. Helens. Has ever heard of Mount St. Helens before?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
All right. I really think. The one on the left is. The one on the right is not so much.
Off and blew up.
So, it's things like that you could challenge uniformitarianism. This effect did not take millions of years.
No.
All right. This took one eruption. Okay, and
you mean from left to right?
yeah.
Oh.
And you can see that the volcano, of course, is completely different. The trees are all dead on the one on the right, and the river has even changed course. Okay, and this is one eruption, so I don't know when these pictures were taken, but maybe they're a week apart or something like that, or a day apart, and you can see just the complete difference and things. And this kind of thing happens in sites all the time. I mean, if you go back and you don't hear about the eruption, maybe you think it didn't take so long. Anyway, okay, these are the two assumptions of modern science. Okay, two principles of modern science: materialism and uniformitarianism. Okay, materialism and uniformitarianism. We've already talked about uniformitarianism. Materialism is a rejection of any supernatural forces to explain anything. Okay, so basically, when you experience the universe with your five senses, you must explain everything without God, without any kind of supernatural forces. Okay, I'll never forget someone named Eugenie Scott, who was the executive director for the National Centers for Science Education in the United States. Basically, she was directing the direction of science education for public schools in America. And in an interview, she was attacking a Christian who wanted to bring intelligent design into the classroom. And she said, and she got frustrated, and he said, "Oh, there's evidence of intelligent design." And she said, "Don't you realize that what science is explaining things using natural causes?" And that's really what they think. They think the goal of science is to explain everything with no God, without God, with just accidental properties. And we look around the world and we see there's intelligence in the construction of everything. There's so much that we take for granted, like gravity, that we can't live without. But sadly, science has gone so far away from what it originally was during the scientific revolution. Okay. I am going to limit a lot of what I wanted to say today. I wanted to talk twice as long. I wanted to go through carbon-14 dating, potassium argon dating, and has anyone heard of the Grand Canyon? Who's heard of the Grand Canyon?
Never.
This is the, well, I know you have.
Never.
Well, Noah's.
Grand what?
Crayon?
Yeah, the Grand Crayon?
So the Grand Canyon is like with Noah's flood and biblical creationism. It's the battleground in America. This is not America, so I didn't really bring it up here. But if we were in America, half the time would be spent on talking about the Grand Canyon. Okay, we didn't cover dating methods. Has anyone heard of carbon-14, potassium argon dating methods? It's dating as in time, not like, oh, I think there will be a good match. You know,
Dating app.
it's doing that dating app. Carbon-14 is probably the best of the bunch, especially with very recent dates. Because they can kind of use it with historical things, like they can date something that's New Testament time, and they can carbon date it, and they can. You have a document and what date it is in history because they tell you the third year of so and so king, and and you can carbon date that. And carbon dating is really good, but the further back you go, I think the less accurate it becomes. Does anybody know where we get carbon-14 from? We get it from the sun. So we get carbon-14 from the sun, and so we all have carbon-14 in us, and carbon-14 is not stable. It's radioactive, so it's going to decay, and so according to the method, if there's no carbon-14 left in an organism, then that organism is at least 60,000 years old. One major assumption is that the level of carbon-14 has always been the same. So if the world is younger, then maybe the world has been accumulating more carbon-14 since then. So I really think potassium argon is another one that's also very famous. It can give you older dates. I think these dating methods were chosen over other methods probably because they gave dates the evolutionists wanted. They gave really old dates. There are many examples where these methods are obviously wrong, like when they date a rock from a new volcano with a known date, and it comes back, thousands of years old, millions of years old. They've dated. There will be a tree that has been fossilized, covered with lava, and they will carbon-14 date the tree, and potassium argon the rock, date them both, and then the tree inside will be 10,000 years old, and the rock will be.
What's up? No, I think that's Anna's husband, by the way.
I didn't know that.
Anna Furness's husband, the guy who just came in.
Which one?
Steven, the guy who just came in to the stuff, that good-looking Taiwanese
Good-looking guy?
Yeah.
That's Anna's husband?
That's Anna's husband.
Oh,
Yeah.
finally, we get to see him. Okay.
Anyway.
Moving company.
Oh, that's nice. All right. Anyway, with the rock that's around the log will be 10,000 years old, and the rock around it will be millions of years old, and so these dates are obviously wrong, and so when you can verify that these dates are wrong, I wouldn't put a lot of Christians, if they want to believe in a 6,000-year-old Earth, they're really bothered by these dates, but. You really shouldn't be, and I would, and I'm gonna link to some more apologetical material that you could be interested to, if you're interested. So, okay, so Sonny, verses 6, 5 through 6, please.
5 and 6, in
Yes.
chapter 6, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. The Lord was grieved that he had made man on the earth, and his heart was filled with pain.
All right.
Can I read the rest? So the Lord said, I will wipe mankind whom I have created from the face of the earth, men and animals and creatures that move along the ground, and birds of the air, for I am grieved that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Yeah, goes together.
All right. Thank you, Sonny. So, verse 6, the righteous God is sorry that he created man, and his creation is now evil. Verse 7 and 8, now a righteous God will destroy the evil from his creation. Noah's name literally means what? It literally means rest. Probably because
Comfort.
I think it was given to him by his father Lamech, probably because he was a hard worker and he gave everyone else rest. And it's kind of sad because Adam and Eve, they left the garden. Cain left the presence of God, and now everyone on earth is evil, and God is going to judge man. And every intention, that's pretty harsh. Every intention of the thoughts of man's heart was only evil continually. Gosh, that is like everything that they, not just a lot of what they do is evil, but they're just,
That's why he's grieved.
yeah, you're right. That's right.
But how can God change his mind?
Yeah, it's so was the world different before the flood? Was the world different before the flood?
Maybe.
Was that a protest? No.
What's wrong?
No, Joyce asked a really good
Yeah,
question, though.
but
like,
how can God change his mind?
Change his mind about what?
Because he says about, I'm so sorry I made the human beings.
I regret it.
Oh,
But some people will say God's word will never change forever. How can you explain this
well,
right here?
there was a change. I mean, he created the world very good, but then man sinned, and now it's not just one thing. Now you see how terrible the world has gotten. So the variables have changed. He was very pleased at the end of Genesis chapter 2, but now at the end of Genesis chapter 6, he's very upset because in four chapters, there's a lot of corruption that has occurred, and so he's a righteous God. He must destroy the evil.
I think you can explain that God changed his mind just to describe his sorry and sad, or you will have always a God who always changes his mind and changes words.
I think God didn't change his mind, but people changed. People
Yeah.
be evil.
Yeah,
Wicked.
I- I agree. I agree with you.
Thinker. He's still righteousness. That's why he has destroyed this evil. I don't know if that's a
And-
assumption.
and just to kind of, everyone's already kind of explained it all already. Just to, I wouldn't actually see this as a situation of God changing his mind even, because it's like James was just saying right now, like he regretted how evil man had
Yeah.
become, right?
Yeah.
And we know that God is holy and he hates evil, right? And we also know that God does give humanity the ability to choose what decision they're going to make. So it's not really that he changed his mind at all. It's just that he's, like, we see here that, like, God has, like, a response to the things that we do, right? And his heart, even in the New Testament, we see how we can grieve the Spirit with our sin, right? It's that kind of thing, more so.
Yeah, that's the answer I want.
Thanks, Morton.
Victory. Everybody wins.
Thanks, Morton. Thanks, Morton.
Thank you, James.
All right. So, all right, what is this called? Pangea. Has everyone heard of this before? Pangea?
Oh, yeah.
All right. It's very likely
Good old Pangea.
I'm more of a, we talked about earlier, cataclysmic geologist. I believe the world was radically changed during Noah's flood. Probably all the continents like America and Australia and Africa, I think that they were probably joined together in one continent called Pangaea. So you probably noticed when you look at them, they kind of fit together. Like it looks like South America and Africa kind of fits together. And they might have been separated during the flood.
Sometimes we need
How many rivers were there in the Garden of Eden? How many rivers were there in the Garden of Eden?
3 rivers.
4 rivers.
4 rivers.
4 rivers. What happened to Pishon and Gihon? Pishon and Gihon, what happened to them? There's 2 very important rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Those still exist. But what happened to Pishon and Gihon? I don't know. I mean, Noah's flood might have moved water, So, yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. And I was, when I was in the Army, I was a horizontal construction engineer.
Okay.
And so,
It's supposed to be.
It's like, well,
Only go this way, never this way.
well, yeah, exactly. You're right, Morton. So when I was in America, our biggest enemy was not like insurgents; it was water. We would, build roads and build parks and stuff like that. And then if you don't do it right, expecting water, a rain would come and just erase everything you've done. And so,
So what happened with
water is a powerful force. Yes. What?
What happened with New Orleans?
New Orleans.
Katrina.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I know they went to.
What was
The things failed.
result
The
afterwards? We never heard the result.
what result of what?
Why did the dikes hold and
The dikes hold.
everything was supposed to hold the water back for?
She's talking about the levees breaking.
Oh, the levees. Yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
I'm thinking.
I don't know. I don't have a lot of detailed information on that right now. Why don't you can ask me afterwards online. I can
Because all my
look it up.
relatives from my mother's side died in it.
Wow, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible. Yeah, I know that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers did go there, but
New Orleans.
yeah, that's
Never
pretty
found
bad.
out what the reason was for all
All right.
that. Okay.
All right, what is this? This is the lifespans of people, and look what happened after the flood.
Yeah.
Wow.
God
Look at that.
determined it.
It could be that I don't know why do you think this happened? Do you think the flood destroyed a very healthy ecosystem? And look at that huge drop.
Yeah.
You can see Adam and Lamech, and they lived like Asians. They just live so long. And then after Noah's flood, everyone is like an American. Like they just.
I wouldn't go that far. Give us a break here.
And there might not even been rain at all.
Breathe that, Victor.
There might not even been rain at all. Genesis 2 verses 5 through 6. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain on the land, and there was no rain to work the ground, and a mist was going up from the land and was watering the whole face of the ground. So and so there might not have been rain going on at all. We don't know. I'm not going to argue over when there's only one verse. I'm not going to this verse. The Hebrew says. I'm not gonna argue to death over secondary issues, but
Unless it's the sons of God thing.
unless it's the Sons of God thing, and then we're going to argue that.
In which case, you will die on that.
Well, then I'm going to really argue with you, okay? Well, I heard somebody say it was like the tsunami that happened, was it what country?
Tsunami.
Thailand?
Japan?
What was that? Thailand or?
Japan?
Sumatra, Thailand.
The big one.
Yeah, Sumatra.
Yeah, they said it was like that.
Sumatra.
They compared it to that.
Might have been something like
Yeah.
I
think that's a good comparison.
Well, and you might assume that there's just a mist, like a garden, a greenhouse, just a mist that's coming up and just kind of sprinkling everything, and it could have just been a really amazing habitat. Okay, and we do know that there is underground water.
Yes.
You know, we can if you have a well, you're very aware that there is underground water.
These farmers really know about it too.
Vidar, why don't you read for us? Verses 9 through 10.
Noah and Noah are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God, and Noah had 3 sons: Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Okay, so Noah was blameless and he walked with God. So he's not completely indulged in sin like everyone else. He had a relationship with God. Who else walked with God? Enoch walked with God. Good. David wasn't even here. He doesn't even think biblically with his mind. He thinks with his heart. All right. Sham's name means name. I don't know. It's a really horrible name. I'm gonna name you name. Ham's name means hot. Ham. Just listen to Vidar. His pronunciation is probably better. Japheth's name means opened.
Open?
Okay. Opened.
Like open sesame?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, like open the door. Yeah, I guess. Okay. All right. Would you like to try to read?
Already?
Yeah, sure. Verses 11 and 12.
Was corrupt and got sight. The earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth. Behold, it was corrupt for all flesh. It corrupt their way on the earth.
All right. So corrupt is like spoiled milk. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Good job.
Excellent. We enjoyed every word.
Corrupt is like spoiled milk. Okay, so milk is yummy. It tastes good. It's useful, but then you leave it out too long, and then it becomes corrupt. It smells bad. It tastes bad, and you drink it. It makes you sick. Okay, so that's what the world is like right now. It was created very good. Now it's disordered and violent. Okay, verses 13 through 14.
Okay, but I read from ESV because I can see it from there.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
So we're 13. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher. Is that gopher wood?
It's fine.
Okay, gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark is 200.
Oh wait. We can. All right. So just like Cain murdered his brother, now the world is filled with violence. And remember, in Genesis chapter 1, man was supposed to have dominion over the earth, and now God is going to use the earth to destroy man. Okay. Verse 14. We don't really know what gopher wood was, but it must have been strong because it's going to have to support a big ship, a huge ship. So this is kind of like the steel version of wood, and we can't compare it to anything. We don't know what it is today. There are very, very strong types of wood that exist today. So
In NIV it says cypress. C-Y-P-R-E-S-S. Cypress.
well, I do know I know the Hebrew version of the word is not known, so we don't know what type it is. So, what is and pitch is obviously going to be used to waterproof the ark. Okay, so you need it. So if you just have wood, water's going to come in after a year. So you need to.
Get any of it on them.
That's right. Okay, next is Ivy verse 15.
This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark is 300 cubits. It's spread 50 cubits. Height 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark and finish it to a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in
All right, good, Ivy. I'm going to read the rest. For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your son's wife with you. And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female, of the birds according to their kinds, and of the animals according to their kinds, and of every creeping thing of the ground according to its kind. 2 of every sort shall come into you to keep them alive. And also take with you every sort of food that is eaten, and store it up. It shall serve as food for you and for them. Noah did this, and he did all that God commanded him. Okay, so God is going to make a covenant with Noah, just like he made a covenant with Abraham, just like Jesus made a covenant with the apostles. How big is a cubit? Cubit is about half a meter. All right.
Can I just add something? There were a pretty significant, well, kind of important detail there. There were 8 people on the ark, right?
Right.
And the Chinese word for boat, 船, shows that there are 8 people, 8 mouths, right?
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So 8口人, so there's 8 people on the boat. So this is like
一个州
Yeah.
on the 州, yeah,
Yeah.
方舟, right? So 我也方舟的舟有8口人.
So that means the Chinese believe in the flood also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yay.
definitely. The Chinese people, Chinese word has a lot of words that has biblical value. Yeah.
I've heard of a lot of
Yeah,
it.
that's neat.
All right, look at this. Look at this big thing.
Whoa.
I could show you more.
What in the world?
Well, we need to. Oh, I know. Before we do that, verse 22.
Oh, where'd it go?
Noah did this, and he did all that God commanded him. Okay.
Bring it back.
Noah obeying God demonstrates his godliness. All right, going back to this. So, has anybody heard about this? This is in Kentucky. So this is, they built this, the Creation Museum in Kentucky built this, and it is the exact size, 1-to-1 exact size of the dimensions used in Genesis chapter 6.
Is that man named Ham?
Ken Ham, yeah.
Ham, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, he actually finished it and everything.
Yeah. And you can visit that if you're in America.
Super.
Oh, so that's a museum inside.
Yeah, there's a museum inside, and it's so you can tell that you can put a lot of animals in there.
Good conclusion.
Basically, yeah.
Oh,
And you can see why it takes 100 years to make that.
Especially back then, they
Only
didn't
8
have,
people.
they didn't have cranes, you know.
Wow.
Even 8 people to build that, and how long did it take? 100 years or so?
Yeah, 100 years, yeah. But yeah, it's good that Noah was a hard worker.
Yeah.
That's why his name is Noah. Anyway. Okay,
And he knew how to rest.
Judy, it's your turn.
Then the Lord said to Noah, go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, and the male and his mate, and a pair of the animals that are not clean, and male and his mate.
Right. So what will happen to the clean animals?
They'll be used for sacrifice.
Yeah, they'll be used for sacrifices, okay? Which is why God tells them to bring more, okay? So at this point, it's pretty obvious that Moses is the author of Genesis, right? Because he introduced clean animals, and he doesn't really give a lot of explanation, probably because the explanation's given in Leviticus chapter 11. It's pretty clear that, to me, I think that Moses wrote Genesis, okay? Not all animals in the world have to come into the ark, right? You only need one type of dog, right? Or just a few types of dogs, and they will reproduce and become many different species, okay? You might call this is not like Darwinistic evolution. This is like you might call it microevolution, right? So you don't have to bring in every type of enormous dinosaur, right? So, would you like to read verses 3 and 4, John?
And the 7 pairs of the birds of the heaven, also male and female, to keep their offsprings alive on the face of all the earth. For in 7 days I will send the rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights, and every living thing that I have made will blot out from the face of the ground, and not to date all that the Lord had commanded him.
Okay, so birds will also have 7 pairs, just like the clean animals, because they need extra to survive when the water level goes back down. And Moses has, at this point, has 1 more week to get ready. Has 1 more week.
No, right?
Yeah, who did I say?
Moses.
Did I say Moses?
Yeah,
Oops, sorry.
Moses had 1 more week to get ready.
Sorry. Noah's got 1 more week. He's verse 5. Sorry, verse 5. He's very obedient. And Genesis chapter 1, man receives dominion over the animals, and now he will help many types of animals survive God's judgment. So that so it's kind of continuing Genesis chapter 1. Got man's dominion over the animals. Man is still kind of in the image of God here, and now they're like he's being kind of a godly figure where he's maintaining the surviving of all these kinds of different animals. Okay, James verse. Well, actually, James, I'll let you read next. I'm going to go through 6 through 12 quickly. Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters came upon the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood, of clean animals and of animals that are not clean, and of birds and of everything that creeps on the ground. 2 and 2, male and female, went into the ark with Noah, as God commanded Noah. And after 7 days, the waters of the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month on the 17th day of the month. On that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened, and rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Okay, windows of the heavens.
Water can be both ways.
Yeah, that's pretty bad, right?
Underground reservoirs, I guess. Underground lakes and stuff came up.
Yeah, yeah, I think and so yeah. Windows of heavens is probably an analogy. There are some creationists who believe that there was actually water above the earth, and then at this point it all fell down. I'm thinking it's probably an analogy to show that this is not just like a small rain. This is like pouring. Like when you turn on a bathtub, literally, like just a pouring, just incredibly intense rain.
Or like when the dam bursts. When the dam bursts.
Yeah, maybe. And Malachi chapter 3, verse 10 is talking about bringing the tithes into the storehouses, and God says he will open the windows of heaven, okay? And so windows of heaven here obviously is just... is talking about the blessings. And again, it's an analogy. So this is probably an analogy. Okay. All right. Did we talk about the raven yet?
No.
Like the poem by Edgar Allan Poe.
Just the rain.
For 40.
My notes are all messed up.
I haven't gotten to that yet.
Quote the raven.
Yes.
I was thinking that. Yeah. Nice quote. Okay. So these are the people who have Adam, Seth, Noah right here, and these people are many of these were in Genesis chapter 5, and they all died before the flood, except Methuselah. He died the same year of the flood. So if you look at when he died in Genesis chapter 5, he dies on the very same year as the flood. So do you think he drowned in the flood? Or do you think he died and then once he died, some people believe he was righteous, and then once he died, then God said, okay, now drown the world.
Yeah.
Is that what you believe?
Yeah.
Methuselah was a good dude.
Before the flood, yeah.
I-
God wouldn't let him drown.
I'm not going to make a stand on this like Sons of God. No, just kidding. But I'm not going to make a stand on this, but because famous creationist Henry Morris translates his name as Death and Judgment. Death and Judgment. So if you translate his name Death and Judgment, then after he dies, then the judgment comes. Okay. There is everyone seems to know that Methuselah's name is connected with death. Most Hebrew scholars translate his name Man of the Dart, or Man of the Spear, or Man of the Sword, something like that. I'm not gonna take a side on this, but I'm just letting you know that there is a debate. Okay, all right. So, Morton, have you read yet?
What, 13 and 14?
But let me read this because I have to read four verses. Sorry. On the very same day, Noah and his sons Shem and Ham and Japheth and Noah's wife and the 3 wives of his sons with them entered the ark. They and every beast according to its kind, and all the livestock according to their kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, every winged creature. And they went into the ark with Noah 2 and 2 of all flesh, in which there was the breath of life. And those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded them. And the Lord shut him in. Okay. So, that's right. So, who shut the ark? The Lord shut the ark. And the gospel can kind of, I do that sometimes. The ark can kind of represent the gospel, right?
Yeah.
And why is that? Why can the ark represent the gospel?
Save life.
Right. So there's judgment coming. God will make a way, right? For those who have a relationship with him. Noah walked with God, had a relationship. He was righteous. He had faith. God made a way of escape for Noah, right? That's how it works for those in a relationship with God, right?
Entered the ark and got saved,
Right.
while the rest of the earth got punished.
Right. And even Peter even says in 1 Peter 3:21 that the baptism corresponds to Noah's flood. So I'll let you. All right. So Morton, verse. Yeah. Here you go. 17 through 19.
All right. The flood continued 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered.
Yeah. So some people also believe that this is a local flood. You might believe that Noah's flood is a local flood, and that's fine. But it says here that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. So that's a pretty high local flood. So I think it's a global flood.
The tallest mountains too are covered.
Yeah.
That's really
There's a
cool.
movie, Hollywood movie about the flood.
Huh?
The Hollywood movie, the film.
Oh yeah.
That one, right?
Is it-
flood even at the Everest or something.
Mount Everest, right?
Yeah, the Mount
Yeah,
Everest.
Mount
A
Everest.
couple seconds ago.
Yeah, that's probably amazing. Yeah. Okay. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. So 15 cubits, so that's about 7.5 meters above Mount Everest. That's a lot. And all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds, livestock, beasts, and all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind, everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life, died.
So all the fish stayed.
No.
Fish.
He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things, and birds of the heavens. They were they were blotted out.
They perished. All the creatures that swim. Yeah. They
But your
perished.
theory is pretty good.
Wow.
It kind of makes sense that a lot of fish would die too,
Yeah.
because with waters that violent and with like all of that other stuff getting mixed, like, I don't know. It's just, it kind of it sort of makes I would imagine that probably a lot of fish would die too, maybe.
Yeah.
Because the entire ecosystem of the ocean is totally changing. You know what I mean? Like they're used to maybe like water temperatures, like migration routes, food sources. I mean, it would be. I mean, they're not just. I mean, fish don't just need water to live, right?
But where does it say the fish died?
I don't know if it does, but I was just thinking.
It's
That's
all
kind of
that swim.
Oh yeah.
Swarm.
All swarming creatures that swim on the earth. Oh, not swim.
Yeah.
Everything on the dry land.
Yeah, on the dry land. Okay, so and let me just read this. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left and those who were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. So this is just a complete extermination. Water all over the world, 150 days. Just going to make sure, God's going to make sure to get rid of all the evil people, right? All right. So, what happened to the fish? What happened to the fish? Now, what do people think happened to the fish? Obviously some of them died, but I mean, the majority, they're okay, right? They don't mind water.
My assumption is they lived.
Yeah, of course. There were no fish on the ark.
Oh, you're right. There were no fish on the ark. They did not have an aquarium.
They didn't have an aquarium. They didn't have that much pitch, I don't think. So what happened? What happened to the trees?
I don't know, but not
Here
sure.
said only Noah was left, and those who were in the ark, something in the ark, were left.
So I'm thinking that most.
Everything that was on the face of the ground, right, on dry land.
Right. I probably almost all the trees died. I mean, most. Birds died. Yeah, for sure, birds died. But I'm thinking of the plants. Plants can't. You're talking about 6 to 9 months submerged in water. A lot of plants can't do that. So probably the fish were okay. The plants not. But the plants are not on the ark, right? So how are the plants going to survive?
But there's seaweed.
Yeah, right.
No, you're right.
But what do you say?
But I mean, like there were still seeds though. And
There were seeds, right? There were seeds. There's seeds. There's probably we're not there, but Noah probably looks out the window. Well, I don't think he opened the window for a long time, but if he did, there's probably logs all over the place with seeds. The animals are eating seeds. They're pooping out seeds. There's seeds all over the place. Animals, the trees are probably going to take some time to grow back, but they're going to grow back. They're going to be okay. But the ark needs the animals because that's the only way they're going to survive, right? All right. So,
So are you saying he brought seeds, or he just gave the animals the food, and that was kind of like?
I don't think it talks about that. I don't think he was required to plant anything. I think you probably have a lot of logs going around. Like you probably have a lot of plants, all over the face of the ocean of this huge destruction. And then when the water goes back down, they're going to kind of plant, like a coconut can travel from one island to another island and plant a coconut tree, and so it's going to be something like that. But I don't think it's going to be similar to. It's not going to be. It's going to be. It's probably not going to be like it used to be, which is probably why man is able to eat meat when he gets off the ark, because it's probably not. And then it doesn't live as long, right? Because it's probably nothing like it used to be.
40 days and 40 nights. the roots would rot. And
It's a lot longer than that. It's 150 days of just there,
yeah.
and then it take. So it's more like 6 months at least, 6 to 9 months. So like all the plants died, probably. Maybe not the seaweed, and so like yeah.
Seaweed's okay.
Seaweed's okay. I don't know. Maybe I.
I gotta go.
Bye bye, Morgan. Bye bye.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, good seeing you guys.
Yeah. Great having you here.
Good to be here. God bless you all.
All right, bye bye.
Bye. Oh, it's good having
All right. So the flood subsides, but God remembered Noah and all the beasts, all the livestock that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind blow over the earth, and the water subsided. The fountains of the deep and the waters of the heavens were closed. The rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually. At the end of 150 days, the waters had abated. How far am I reading? 5. And in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, and the waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. I think Pastor Kim did a much better job with his reading today than that. Oh my gosh. All right, this is Mount Ararat. This is Mount Ararat. So the ark ended somewhere here, okay? So it could have been up in the top, it could have been here, it could have been right here. You don't really know where it is.
I thought it was on one of the slopes.
It could be in
I don't know.
Right? On one of the slopes, just on a crevice.
And by the way, historically, we talked about Josephus before. Josephus writes in his historical writings that they at the time of the New Testament, they knew where the ark was. The ark was still existed, like, and you could go there. Josephus, who was a Jew writing for the Romans, knew that, and it was in Armenia, and that's one of the reasons why they said that the missionaries who went to Armenia were so successful, because they could start as this as a reference, and they said, "Oh, you know the story behind this. Let me tell you the rest," and then that was why the gospel was so useful to them. Anyway,
That's a good way to talk about it.
So what happened to the ark now?
I don't think it's there anymore. I think what happened was probably that it got stripped because it was. I mean, especially as Christianity exploded, everyone probably wanted a piece of the ark, and then there became nothing left. It becomes valuable, and then you don't know what is, and then someone gives you a piece of wood and says, "Oh, it's ark," and you don't know if it's driftwood or if it's. Anyway, so at the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made, and he sent forth a raven. It went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to set her foot, and she returned to him to the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came, and the dove, Mickey, did you make me sick? And the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. Then he waited another 7 days and sent forth the dove, and she did not return to him anymore. Okay.
Olive tree grew up. So it's dry now, right?
So this is what an olive leaf looks like. So she didn't have, like, a lot of the pictures, she's got the whole branch. I don't think there's enough time for them to have a whole branch. Probably just a leaf. So this is the timeline. Enter the ark, 7 days. and then 40 days, 40 nights rain, then 110 days of just the rain. The water's just there, and God's just waiting for everything to die. So maybe there's some evil person who's like on a boat and just barely surviving, just 150 days for everyone to die. And then the wind begins and the water starts going away. And then 74 more days, and then the mountaintops show. Okay, so how long does it take for? How long does the olive leaf take to need to grow? Okay, so sometime around this time to this point. Okay, so 66 days, and then we're going to talk about the earth becoming dry and then leaving the ark. But in 66 days, the new olive branch needs to produce leaf for the dove to find. So possibly what happened was we talked about logs going around and some debris coming along. It might have had. Have you ever heard when planting something called cutting? Cutting is when you put like a cutting from a tree or a plant into the ground, and so it's much faster than a seed, and so that could be a lot faster, and so you might have with 66 days that might be enough time. When the mountaintops show 66 days, you might have enough. You probably should have enough time before you start having vegetation again. Okay.
Thomas, did you mention the fossil of fish on top of the mountain?
Yes.
Okay.
There's fossils. There's fish fossils on top of Mount Everest. Yeah.
That's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
Fish fossils.
So that's
bone of the
and it's not only a miracle that there are fish fossils on Mount Everest. It's a miracle that there are so many fossils all over the world, because like in order for there to be a fossil, it has to be fossilized before it decays, and so the method of that happening is probably Noah's flood. But yeah, it is pretty cool, and I think that studying science actually should help encourage your biblical views on things, and it shouldn't just discourage it. So the raven, what happened with the raven? The raven, they sent it out and went all over the place, and maybe it never came back. The dove couldn't find anywhere it came back, but doves, they're more inclined to return. So even when the dove finds a place to sit, finds food, it still comes back. Okay, and then the leaf shows that not only do you find earth, but you also have vegetation again. Yeah.
I had a question.
Yep. Go ahead.
Came up with a question. Where did the water go?
It could have evaporated, because I think most scientists will agree that there is enough water on the earth to submerge the land. So it just went where it is today. So it went back under the ground where the whales are. You have frozen Greenland and frozen Antarctica. Some of it went into the sky. It went to where it is today. So wherever you see water today, that's where it went. Well, I mean, 70% of the earth is water. So that's it. It just went back to where it is today. So, okay. So, verse 13. Let me go through. We're almost done. Hopefully, I'm going to give you enough time. I did cut a lot of stuff out. I know Noah's flood is hard to cover. All right, verse 13 through 19. We're going to go a little bit quicker. In the 601st year, in the first month, in the first day of the month, the waters were dried from off the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. In the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth dried out. Then God said to Noah, "Go out from the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth went out by families from the ark. All right, so Noah left the ark. Okay, that's basically what happened. Verse 20 through 22. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered birds offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man, for the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done, while the earth remains seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. Okay, so this is a sacrifice, right? How many sacrifices have there been so far? How many sacrifices? So you have Abel's sacrifice. You have Cain didn't have a sacrifice, and you have Abel had a sacrifice. God sacrificed in Genesis chapter 3, and now this is your third sacrifice. And of course, these all point to Christ, right? These all point to Jesus, who is the ultimate sacrifice. They all point to Jesus, who is God, part of the Trinity. Okay. God seems to have pity for man. God has pity for man because of his sinful condition. Okay, so God is still the same God, right? But he's not going to judge the world again, not because we're better now, but because, well, they have original sin. They're corrupt. They have corrupted flesh. They have original sin. So God actually has pity for our sinful condition. So man does evil things because he is evil. That is his nature. Just like a baby cries. That's what they are. Man is evil because that's what he is. And so so after the sacrifice, God will not judge the world again until all those who belong to Christ come to Christ, right? Who come to Christ, who is part of the Trinity, right? All right. Verse 9.
Can we have some time to pray?
Let me just go through it really quickly. Just go really quickly. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you, and as I gave you the green plants, I gave you everything, but you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is its blood, and for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it, and from man, from his fellow man, I will require a reckoning for the life of man. All right. So this is a blessing. I don't know why this happened. It could be that the trees are gone. The trees are different. Whatever reason, now man, maybe, whatever reason, man is now allowed to eat meat. And this is my favorite part of the Bible. No, just kidding. I'm joking. But we cannot eat the meat with the blood, like a lion. Okay, that's yeah. So yeah. So. Verse 6 through 7. Joyce, could you read verse 6 through 7, please?
Whoever shakes the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image. And you, be fruitful and multiply, increase greatly on the earth and multiply in it.
All right, so now we have the first law. Okay, this is not a law given to the church. This is a law given to everyone, okay? Whoever kills man, he shall be killed also. Whether it's animal or human, whoever kills man, they shall be killed. And you might say this was the creation of government. The world was very violent before Noah's flood. It had anarchy, no government. And now, if you kill a man, you shall be killed. And so you'll have order. You'll have less violence. All right, very quickly. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth with you. As many as come out of the ark, it is for every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. But when the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, this is a sign of the covenant that I've established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. So the rainbow has nothing to do with homosexuality. It is it's a sign of the covenant. God will not drown the world anymore. Okay, let's keep going. All right, let's see how well Noah does now that he's got no competition. The sons of God who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These were the sons of Noah, and from these the people of the whole earth were dispersed. Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk and lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backwards and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son had done to him. He said, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers. He also said, blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. And the flood, and after the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. So Noah gets a lot bigger explanation than everyone else in Genesis chapter 5, doesn't he? All right. And that is all that we're going to be reading today. Noah gets drunk. That's a sin, right? It's not good for him to get drunk, right? Even though he's not punished in this, it's still not good. He's got to set an example. He's still a sinner. He's still a sinner. We all sin. Even though you're a Christian, you have the Holy Spirit, you still might sin. But he makes a he has a huge responsibility, repopulate the earth with godly people. And now he gets drunk, and he shamefully is naked in his tent, right? All right. How are Ham's actions different from his brother's actions? How are Ham's actions different from his brother's actions?
Disgraceful.
Yeah, and so he is. Ham is trying to show off the shamefulness of his father for whatever reason. We're not giving a lot of details, but for whatever reason, Ham is saying, "Hey guys, look at this," and this is a shameful time. And Ham is bringing them there to show them, and the brothers don't want to see the nakedness, and they do everything they can not to see it, cover their father. So you can see a clear difference. And they want to reduce the father's shame, while Ham wants to promote their father's shame. So Ham might have been godly, but perhaps he was immature compared with his brothers. He might not have raised Canaan to be godly like the rest of his family. Noah lived about 1,000 years, so he probably knew his family very well. You know, probably your family knows you pretty well, especially if you lived with them for 1,000 years, or one whole year on an ark. Noah cursed Cain with the authority as his grandfather, and maybe he's using his understanding of his family to come to this conclusion. We do know that Canaan's name means lowland, and remember when Israel left Egypt, they came into Canaan and conquered the land, and the Canaanites at that time were very ungodly as you can imagine. So Noah's judgment does prove to be a correct one. Canaan was probably, you've got one big huge family here. You've got your grandfather, and you've got three, his three sons, and you have all these children. Canaan was probably the most ungodly, obviously the most ungodly, and Ham is not much better. So that's something that would happen. Okay, all right. That's the end of that. I do want to read one more. 2 Peter 3, verse 3-7. Knowing this first of all, that scoffers will come in the last days with scoffing, following their own sinful desires. They will say, where is the promise of his coming? For ever since the fathers fell asleep, all things are continuing as they were from the beginning of creation. For they deliberately overlooked this fact that the heavens existed long ago, and the earth was formed out of water and through water by the word of God, and that by means of this, the world that existed was deluged with water and perished. But by the same word, the heavens and earth that now exist are stored up for fire, being kept until the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly. So Peter tells us in 2 Peter that if you believe in Noah's flood and you're laughed at, you're scoffed at, Peter says that's normal. Just like Noah at his time when he's building it, he's probably laughed at, but he's building it by faith, and if you're a Christian and you believe this, you believe it by faith as well. And that is in. Well, I'm going to give you plenty of time to pray.
Like 3 minutes, really?